Yamunatiravanachari Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Haribol, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol. Paramahamsa Parivraj Acharya Stuttarajata Shishimat His Divine Grace La A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Grantaraj Shiva Bhagavatam Ki Jai Gaura Premanandi Hari. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna Mataji. Hare Krishna, what's your name?
Brinda.
Brinda. You live here?
No, I live in Bangladesh, in Belgium.
Ah, okay. You came for vacation or?
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome. Hare Krishna. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 26, Text 22. This chapter is entitled King Puranjana Goes to the Forest to Hunt. Paramonugraho dando, Paramonugraho dando, Priteshu Prabhunarpitaha, Briteshu Prabhunarpitaha, Balona Veda Tatanvi, Balona Veda Tatanvi, Bandhu Krityang Amarshanaha, Bandhu Krityam Amarshanaha, Paramonugraho dando, Priteshu Prabhunarpitaha, Balona Veda Tatanvi, Bandhu Krityang Amarshanaha. Please chant.
Paramonugraho dando, Priteshu Prabhunarpitaha,
Kicsit.
Paramo
Paramonugraho dando Nityeshu Prabhunarpita Palona Veda Tattanvi Bandhu Kritya Mamashana Paramonugraho dando Nityeshu Prabhunarpita Palona Veda Tattanvi Bandhu Kritya Mamashana Paramaha Supreme Anugraha Mercy Dandaha Punishment Priteshu upon the servants Prabhuna by the master Arpitaha awarded Balaha foolish Na does not Veda no Tat that Tanvi O slender maiden Bandhu Krityam the duty of a friend Amarshanaha angry. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. My dear slender maiden, when a master chastises his servant, the servant should accept this a great mercy. One who becomes angry must be very foolish, not to know that such is the duty of his friend. Purport. It is said that when a foolish man is instructed in something very nice, he generally cannot accept it. Indeed, he actually becomes angry. Such anger is compared to the poison of a serpent. For when a serpent is fed milk and bananas, its poison actually increases. Instead of becoming merciful or sober, the serpent increases its poisonous venom when fed nice foodstuffs. Similarly, when a fool is instructed, he does not rectify himself, but actually becomes angry. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatang Vitang Tvang Sajivam Sadvaitang Savadutang Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitangscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Paramonugraho dando briteshu prabhunarpitah balona veda tattanvi Pandu kritya mamarshanaha. My dear slender maiden, when a master chastises his servant, the servant should accept this as a great mercy. One who becomes angry must be very foolish not to know that such is the duty of his friend. Hare Krishna. So, please, thank you for coming and please bless me. I've not been at the program so much the last few days, and so consciousness is affected. So this verse, one could take this verse and misuse it in the sense that walk around in the temple and start to correct others and then say, hey, don't be a fool. I'm just trying to help you. I'm just trying to tell you what you're doing wrong. So I'm just being merciful with you, and I'm going to tell you what you're not doing right, and you just be humble and accept it. But maybe we can, what I was thinking, just spontaneously, we can try to look at it from different angles, that aspect. And especially I was thinking about examples from our teachers, our acharyas, and also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we know that one of the key verses of our Krishna consciousness practice is Trinadapi Sunicena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadaharihi. That we should be more humble than a blade of grass and more tolerant than a tree. And if one has this state of mind, then he or she can chant the holy name of Krishna constantly. And that is our goal, that we can constantly chant the holy name of Krishna. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Antya Lila, there is wonderful chapters describing the glories of Haridas Thakur, who is the Namacharya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he chose him as the Namacharya. Even though Haridas Thakur, he, from a material point of view, he was quite unqualified. He was born in a Muslim family, and Muslims, we know, they have different kinds of habits. It's not a Vedic culture they follow, but they have other kinds of habits. They eat meat and all kinds of things, similar to what we experience here in the West. And most of us are also belong to that category. It's called the Mlechas or the Yavanas. And so Haridas Thakur, he was born in such a family, but being a very exalted devotee, he actually, pure devotee, he was on the perfect platform of Krishna consciousness, and he showed that by his personal example. And he would chant a lot of Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. He would chant 300,000 names a day, which is how many rounds? 192 rounds. How many times is that? 16 times how many? 16 times. So 4 is 64. 12 times, huh? 12 times 16 rounds. It's actually inconceivable.
It's all day.
All day. You know, you can maybe do it one day, but then all day. It's fun. And so in these chapters, Haridas Thakur's glories, they bring out the glories of the holy name, because at some point it is said how Haridas Thakur moved to a place close to Advaitacharya, and Advaitacharya would worship as the most exalted personality, and Haridas Thakur himself was protesting, saying, hey, I am a fallen person, why do you respect me in that way? Why do you even worship me in that way? He would give to Haridas Thakur the pinda, no? that plate which is offered to the forefathers. He would give, it is the custom that you offer food to the forefathers, and after that, that prasad, which is offered to Krishna, is then given to the foremost brahmana. And so he would offer it to Haridas Thakur, and Haridas Thakur was felt very ashamed, because he knew from what kind of background he came. But then Advaitacharya was saying, you're the topmost brahmana, you're actually the topmost Vaishnava, because you're always chanting the holy name. And also later on, in another chapter with Sanatana Goswami, Sanatana Goswami is coming to Vrindavan, and also in that chapter, the glories of the holy name come out, where you might remember that Sanatana Goswami, on the way from Vrindavan to Jagannath Puri, he traveled through the Charakand forest, the same forest which Mahaprabhu went when he went from Puri to Vrindavan. And due to drinking contaminated water and also not having so much food all the time, he developed a disease, and which gave him a lot of itching sensation on the skin, and so he would develop some wounds and all over his body, and some insects were attracted also by that wounds, and pus was coming out. And Sanatana Goswami, he was feeling very contaminated and very useless, so he started to think that, let me commit suicide, because this body is useless, my birth is useless, let me just commit suicide, and then in this way, if I throw myself in front of the wheel of the chariot of Jagannath, then I will certainly attain a superior destination. And after some time, so Sanatana Goswami came to Puri, he was staying with Haridas Thakur, and both of them, they would not go to the temple, because both of them came from Haridas Thakur born in a Muslim family, and Sanatana Goswami kind of being converted, not being converted to Muslim, but having close association with the Shah, the king, which was a Muslim, and that's why he was also kind of fallen in the eyes of Vedic society, the Hindu society. Not Vedic, because that is actually, Vedic means you understand who is exalted and who is fallen, but the Hindu society, meaning some kind of concocted dharma which is based on the Vedic scriptures but misunderstood. Hindu hodgepodge concoction based on the bodily platform. And so they would stay together, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would come daily, and at one point he told to Sanatana Goswami that, out of the blue, Sanatana Goswami didn't mention anything, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told him that if somebody wants to commit suicide, this is actually an action in the mode of ignorance. And furthermore, this body doesn't belong to you, it belongs to me. And I have many plans with your body. You have to do a lot of service. So this is, and then he says, this is not the way to attain Krishna. The way to attain Krishna is by the ninefold process of devotional service. And then he goes on, he says, actually the highest of all is hearing and chanting. and remembering. And then he goes further and he says, actually the chanting of the holy name is the essence and is the highest. So, why am I saying this? Because our scriptures, they lead us through all these different stages of spiritual development. If we start from Bhagavad Gita, we are not this body, so we have to act on the spiritual platform. We shouldn't act on the bodily platform. We should not be in duality, we should not be attached, and then we should act for some higher cause, we should act for the pleasure of God, and ultimately we have to completely surrender unto God. That's where it culminates. And then Bhagavatam takes off from there. It takes us through 12 cantos. What does it mean to surrender? What does it mean, bhakti? What does it mean to be a pure devotee of Krishna? And then it takes us further and then establishes that in this age the chanting of the holy name is the superior most process of surrendering to Krishna. And then Chaitanya Charitamrita also again takes us from beginning to the end, and then in the end, what is the end of Chaitanya Charitamrita? Does anyone remember? It's the Shikshastakam, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings are presented in such a condensed form. And what does it say? It means Sankirtan is the essence. Chanting, glorifying the Lord, especially by chanting His holy name. So that is our goal. And in the Shikshastaka, the formula is given how one can situate himself on this platform by being more humble than a blade of grass and more tolerant than a tree. That is the only way to accept the holy name fully and never be separated to the holy name. And we know the holy name is not different from Krishna. So then in this way, by always being humble and tolerant and then always chanting the holy name, one is always in touch with Krishna. So that's what we're aspiring for. And it is very high stage. We were speaking about Haridas Thakur, how he chanted 300,000 names and 3 times 64 rounds and 192 rounds. So that is the perfect example, but we can see from our acharyas that they gave us a different process because we are not qualified. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he gave a minimum of 64 rounds. We were just yesterday discussing about this because we met these Gaudiya Math devotees at the lake during Harinam, and then the question came up, hold on, they are Gaudiya Math devotees, do they all chant 64 rounds? Because we hear that Bhaktisiddhanta established in Gaudiya Math 64 rounds. When I was in Mayapur and I used to go to the Chaitanya Math, often I would also ask them this question, do you all chant 64 rounds? And I found out that they don't. I mean, he told me they don't. And I'm not even sure if they have a minimum of 16.
I heard that for Grihastas it was supposed to be 4 rounds.
Yeah.
For Brahmachari 16 or something, and then for Sannyasis. But I think it wasn't for everyone. No.
Okay.
But I don't know the exact.
Okay. Would be interesting to find out. Of course, nowadays Gaudiya Math split up in so many streams. So I think there is also different standards. Somehow the past few weeks I was doing some research about a few things, and So I came to web pages of different gurus in Gaudiya Math, and I came to one. He was really propagating 64 ounce, and he was, you know, on the front page, sometimes you have these quotes of a devotee, whoever. Let's say it's a website of a person, then in order to establish his glories, then there is some quotes, and few quotes, and I read through, and one quote was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that if you want to be accepted as a devotee, you have to chant 64 rounds. And you know, I immediately felt so bad when I read this, that yeah, like, and I was a little bit questioning that the preaching also, you know, that the front page, you go on his website and the first thing you read is, of course it makes us humble, that's good, but it's also important to encourage the neophyte devotees, not to put them down. So I think that's Prabhupada's secret, why he was so successful. He was encouraging the devotees. And how did he do that? By going down to 16 rounds. Of course, we should find out if 16 rounds is the standard for brahmacharis and 4 for the grihasthas, then we are even higher than the Gaudiya Math. And sometimes you have devotees, not mention any names, they will say, you know, Prabhupada might have been wrong by introducing 16 rounds for the grihastha devotees because they have so much to do, how can they possibly chant? So yeah, we are supposed to constantly chant, and then we have Haridas Thakur, the Namacharya, and then our acharyas, they made some compromise in order to accommodate us. We are conditioned living entities, very conditioned, and so in order for us to make progress in practice, they made that concession. And so, but that means now our goal is to constantly chant. We follow in the footsteps of Haridas Thakur. That means we have to cultivate this Trinada Pisa, Nichana Tarura Pisa, Ishana Manina Manadena. Because that's the formula again to actually become qualified to always chant. And if one can keep this in mind, then if somehow or other there is a devotee in the temple walking around, constantly correcting you, or generally, then it becomes very nice. Because then you will see, wow, even, first of all, you might feel some resistance. That, oh, why is this devotee telling me, you know, who is that devotee? But then, if we become introspective, we can, at least, even though we can see that inside of us, we can understand, hey, now is a chance to become humble. Now is a chance not to listen to my mind and protest. Now is a chance to take a humble position. And this we are supposed to cultivate, and in order to do that, we can also speak a little bit about a few examples in our scriptures, and as I said, from our teachers, how they exemplified that mood of being very humble. And also there is a whole philosophical background how one can, with his intelligence, cultivate that spirit of accepting feedbacks, accepting chastisement, even if it comes from a place where it might be a little bit difficult. And it's actually a sign of learning. I was also remembering there's one verse from Chanakya Pandit where he says, maybe you can help me, a qualified woman should even be accepted from a low family. Gold should be accepted from a filthy place, and advice should be accepted from a foolish, not a foolish, but Yeah, something like this. So Chanakya Pandit, Prabhupada liked to quote Chanakya Pandit, who was a, he's even in India is very famous as a great, wise philosopher. He was actually the assistant of a king, helping him with all kinds of things. So he was giving a lot of wisdom, and he knew a lot about politics and about management. And Prabhupada liked to quote him. Even on a very mundane level, he gives a lot of wisdom. So Chanakya Pandit says, a learned man, he will accept good advice from any source. And like we said in Srimad Bhagavatam takes us, through some progressive understanding in spiritual life. And quite in the end, in the 11th canto, we have the story of the Avadut Brahmana in the Uddhava Gita. And it is a quite significant point that this Avadut, he was, I just have to get it right. So, some Yadu king, he was asking for advice from this Brahmana, this Avadut, and then he was telling him how he became so advanced, and he was saying that he accepted, I even forgot the number, 24 gurus. And he speaks, he accepted the mountain, the earth, the water, the fire, the pigeon, the unmarried woman with the bangles, and so many different people, and not only people but also mundane phenomena, so-called mundane phenomena. And the deep under what it shows is that this Avadut, he was very Krishna conscious, because philosophically we can understand Krishna is everywhere, Vasudeva Sarvamiti, that Samahatma Sudurlabha, that a Mahatma, advanced devotee, he can see Krishna everywhere. Krishna is in every heart and he's in every atom. And so this Avadut, he walked through the world with open eyes, trying to see how Krishna is teaching him through different people and so on. And that is the more advanced understanding of Guru Tattva, that in the beginning we understand, oh, Prabhupada is my Guru, I'm reading his books. And then we understand, oh, I should accept the initiating guru, and I accept some advice from him. But then when one becomes more advanced, then he or she will also accept from other devotees advice, accept Shiksha gurus, and he can understand that they are non-different. And then if one is most advanced, he can accept advice from each and every one. And here is a very interesting point. Bhaktisiddhanta said, this is the qualification to become a guru. He said that if somebody, a Jagat Guru, which is a real guru is Jagat Guru, what is his qualification? He can accept disciples because he can see that these disciples are actually Krishna teaching him. So, something like this, he said. He can accept that everybody is his guru, so that's why he's Jagat Guru. I found it quite amazing. How he presents it. Know that that's an advanced devotee. He will. Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Shishi Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. Today in the morning we heard the quote from Prabhupada, and Prabhupada says, Maya cannot touch me. Powerful statement. Imagine somebody of us would just walk around saying, Maya cannot touch me. Everybody would say, Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you. But Prabhupada is saying, Maya cannot touch me. You know, that shows what kind of caliber of a devotee Prabhupada is, if you can just stand there and say, Maya cannot touch me. Hare Krishna. And so we know in the Bhagavatam, the definition of Maya is given. Maya means that you see something which is not connected to Krishna. And the pure devotee is not touched by Maya, means he sees everything in connection to Krishna. And he's not walking around, I am a devotee of Krishna and everybody else is fallen. And no, he can see everybody's a devotee of Krishna, and that's why he can accept everyone as a guru in some sense. Bhaktisiddhanta, there is this one story where I think it was in Mayapur, and there was one person who would constantly come and meet him, and he would criticize him in a subtle way. And then the devotees were very upset because he's basically offending their guru. That's how they felt. Our Guru Maharaj is worshipable, but then he comes and he's constantly finding fault. And they became quite annoyed with him, and were thinking what to do. And then at one point this person died. And so the devotees were all very happy, and Bhaktisiddhanta was very disappointed. And he said, actually, he was my greatest well-wisher, because he constantly came to tell me that I'm not, I'm not to be humble and all that. So that's a very practical example. Srila Prabhupada, he also manifested that quality many times. The one famous story is in Amsterdam, where they had a deity installation ceremony. I think Hansadutta tells the story, and Prabhupada came, then they had this festival of installing the deities, and somehow the devotees were really spaced out and they didn't do proper, and Prabhupada became very angry, and there were also many outsiders at this event, and not only outsiders but also devotees, and then young devotees, new devotees, and Prabhupada became very angry, and he was chastising the disciples, running around, do this, do that, this should be done like this. And then this one young bhakta, aspiring devotee, came to Prabhupada because he heard chant and be happy. So he said, Prabhupada, just chant and be happy. And Prabhupada took his beat back and started to chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. This shows that there is a genuine humility, because he can see that's Krishna speaking to me, and he's just taking good advice from that source. Another story that comes to my mind is told also in the Prabhupada Memories, where quite in the beginning, I think it was 67, when Prabhupada was in New York, he had a stroke. I'm not even sure. No, it was before that. He didn't have the stroke yet. His health was very bad, and it became so bad that they had to call the doctor. And Brahmananda Prabhu tells the story that it was the Memorial Day weekend, and so they couldn't find a doctor, and then finally they called some doctor up, and he came. He was some Jewish guy, Jewish doctor, and he came in, and first of all he had to figure out what's going on, because it was some rooms without any furniture, and the devotees, walking around, and he's confused. And anyway, he saw Prabhupada, and he basically, examined Prabhupada's health, and then he came out, and Brahmananda asked him, so what's wrong with the Swami? And the doctor told him, well, the old Indian man is just praying too much. He should go out sometimes for a walk, not just sit here all day. And so again, in a similar way, the Brahmananda and the devotees were thinking, nonsense, what is... And he was a little bit impolite, in an impolite way. And so then they went to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, they complained a bit to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, no, he gave a very good advice. He gave very good... and he said, you should go for a walk, and Prabhupada said, no, he gave very good advice. He gave very good advice, this doctor. And from the next day on, Prabhupada would go on his morning walk every day for basically the rest of his life, unless he was... And that also shows, that again, Prabhupada accepts an advice wholeheartedly, and he put it into practice on a daily basis. One thing also came to mind with Prabhupada, I don't remember exactly, maybe you do, about Prabhupada was printing Back to Godhead and distributing, and somebody told him that he should print books. Who was that? Not a devotee, somebody on the street, I think.
It was in a train. It was train.
In a train. In a train, yeah. So Prabhupada was distributing magazines, and somebody in the train was saying, magazines are okay.
Collecting the ticket.
Is it? Okay. The guy who was checking the ticket, he was mentioning that, papers, they be read and thrown away and nobody takes them seriously. Books will be better, something like that. And Prabhupada just took it in and was reflecting about it, and he then changed his course, which of course he was already translating, I think, at the time, but he took it up more seriously. I have one story with my Guru Maharaj, which was quite amazing, I found. We were in Florida, he was establishing this new project, and this was probably, apart from my temple president time, the most intense time in my life, because what happened, we did some mistakes. We cut trees without permission from the government, and not only one or two trees, but many trees, really a lot of trees, because some construction was supposed to be done, and then at one point it became problematic with the government that a rumor was spreading that they will come to the property and see what's going on. And we all became very nervous, because there were really hundreds of trees, because some construction was supposed to be done without permission. And and so Guru Maharaj said, we have to make sure that we don't get in trouble, because So I'm telling this with the hope that you have some faith, that sometimes it's difficult to understand how an advanced devotee. So then we tried to find ways how to get rid of all these trees, the wood which was laying around, and you just cover it up. And so we found some ways how to do that, or at least we tried. And at one point we had to buy machines also in order to do that. And one guy, I still remember it, this one person, he worked for a agricultural machine company, meaning they're selling tractors and all kinds of machines. And he came to our property because we wanted to buy one tractor. And it was we were just about to making the steel, and we really needed that machine in order to do the work. And it was very sweet, because Guru Maharaj, he was those of you who met him, he was a very aristocratic person, coming from a Bengali background. So that in itself, Bengali, aristocratic, they are very refined, but then a Vaishnav, very a subtle person. And then came this 190 huge guy working with agriculture machines, and so he tried to cultivate him also in a way. So we wanted to get this machine, and we had to convince him in a way to make a good deal. And at one point, he mentioned to him that what kind of problem we are having. And so we were standing there, the three of us, and Gurmash was mentioning, and then he was a Christian. So this Christian, Rush was his name, Rush. He said, well, Swami, you're a religious man. Don't you think that just being honest and, telling the government what happened will be better? And I'm also thinking, come on, now he's preaching to my Gurmash about being rightful and all that. And Gurmash just took it in. He said, yeah, actually, and now one could say, yeah, but we shouldn't actually try to judge from external point of view that, he did wrong, or no, we should accept it in a way that this is all under the control of Krishna. And it is always, especially us, it's teaching us something. So from when he said that, he changed his plan. We completely changed the course. So, yeah. And also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, just as a last story, there is a famous pastime where Mahaprabhu, he was already manifesting his Leela as the pure devotee, and he was chanting constantly. And then at one point he went to the bathroom, and when he came out he was biting on his tongue. And one small boy, Gopal, he was questioning, Mahaprabhu, why are you biting your tongue? And so Mahaprabhu went to explain, I'm chanting the holy name constantly, but then I'm going to the toilet and it's a muchi place and the holy name is so exalted, but I still like to chant, so in order not to chant and offend the holy name, I bite my tongue. So in this way my tongue is controlled and I don't chant. And Gopal said, but Mahaprabhu, the holy name is completely pure. It cannot be contaminated. You can chant everywhere. And Mahaprabhu immediately accepted that, and not only that, but he started to call Gopal Guru. He accepted him as his guru. I don't know how old he was, but no, it was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yes, so Hare Krishna. I hope these few stories inspire us to also develop the mood of humility and taking feedbacks from different kinds of sources. Yeah, I wanted to speak also about this, but Hare Krishna, do you want to add anything, or? From the Jagannath Prabhu.
I just remember a story from one ISKCON sannyasi. I believe he told this story himself. There was a festival and big feast, and then he was sitting there with some other senior devotees, and one new bhakta was serving prasadam, and he was going around if anybody would like to have some more. And then the sannyasi said, I would like to have some halava. And then the bhakta said, Maharaj, you're a sannyasi. You're not supposed to eat so much sweets. And then he said, yeah, you're right. And then he didn't take. So well, we have also devotees in our group how to apply this principle.
But to be honest, I find it quite at the borderline. I mean, from the Maharaj's perspective, it's nice, but we also know we have to be careful who we instruct, in what way. And there is a nice story with Mahaprabhu also, that Damodar Pandit, he was criticizing and And what happened? Mahaprabhu sent him away. Of course, he is a pure devotee, but it shows us that it's not, we have to be careful who we think we can instruct.
From the other side, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Then there's also Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj. He gave a speech to the devotees in the mat. He said that if someone comes to criticize us or to give us a hard time, we should accept it as the mercy of Krishna and as an instrument, but also that he has been chosen to be that instrument because he is already destined to get a reaction. Could be. So it's not to justify that we can just give somebody a bad time,
Yeah.
because it's your karma, or this is Krishna's mercy upon you. So from the other end, we should be a little bit more cautious.
Guru Nishta Prabhu.
Я думаю, что можно подсказывать, да?
I think that I can add something.
На каком-то уровне своего сознания.
On some, no, not adding. That подсказывать, как понять.
Есть правда в благости, есть страсти в невежестве. То правда в благости, он ее принимает.
So there is truth in the mode of goodness, in the mode of passion and ignorance. Правда в благости что?
Ну, в благости ее принимают. Ну, вот я тихо там, пожалуйста, вы там неправильно сделали. Ну, благость.
Truth in the mode of goodness is accepting something, when someone says something.
Чтобы подсказать, чтобы не обидеть.
To not, if someone, to not get offended if someone tells you something, corrects you.
Все? Ну, страсти, невежество не примут, невежество. Они просто их страсти, они будут немножко озлобленные.
So in the mode of, in Rajagun, the person will get angry and think about it, and in mode of ignorance they will not accept it at all.
Nice, thank you. This reminded me of, I did some communication workshop with some devotees, and there it was also very nicely explained how we can observe ourselves if we are in the mode of ignorance, passion or goodness, how we take feedback, how we give feedback, and in general how we speak with devotees. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Have a nice day. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.